Hi everyone, I am Anya's dad, Mr. Duig, and I'm here to be your mystery reader today. Now, as you can tell, I'm dressed up in baseball gear because yesterday was supposed to be opening day of the baseball season. Unfortunately, because of the virus, they're not playing baseball yet, but baseball will be back. So today I thought I would read you a poem, maybe two, about baseball. This one was written over 100 years ago. It's about an imaginary player in an imaginary town. I think you'll like it. Casey at the Bat by Ernest L. Thayer. The outlook wasn't brilliant for the Mudville Nine that day. The score stood 4-2 with but one inning more to play. And then when Cooney died at first and Bowers did the same, a sickly silence fell upon the patrons of the game. A straggling few got up to go in deep despair. The rest clung to that hope which springs eternal in the human breast. They thought, if only Casey could get one whack at that, we'd put up even money now with Casey at the bat. But Flynn preceded Casey, as did Jimmy Blake, and the former was a Lulu, and the latter was a cake. So upon that stricken multitude grim melancholy sat, for there seemed but little chance of Casey getting to the bat. But Flynn let drive a single, to the wonderment of all, and Blake, the much despised, tore the cover off the ball. And when the dust had lifted and the men saw what had occurred, there was Johnny safe at second and Flynn was hugging third. Then from 5,000 throats and more there rose a lusty yell. It rumbled through the valleys, it rattled in the dell, it knocked upon the mountains and recoiled upon the flat. For Casey, mighty Casey, was coming to bat. There was ease in Casey's manner as he stepped into his place. There was pride in Casey's bearing and a smile on Casey's face. And when responding to the jeers, he lightly doffed his hat. No stranger in the crowd could doubt 'twas Casey at the bat. 10,000 eyes were on him as he rubbed his hands with dirt. 5,000 tongues applauded when he wiped them on his shirt. Then while the writhing pitcher ground the ball into his hip, defiance gleamed in Casey's eye, a sneer curled Casey's lip. And now the leather-covered sphere came hurtling through the air, and Casey stood watching it in haughty grandeur there. Close by the sturdy batsman, the ball unheeded sped. "That ain't my style," said Casey. "Strike one," the umpire said. From the benches, black with people, there went up a muffled roar, like the beating of the storm waves on a stern and distant shore. "Kill the umpire! Kill him!" shouted some one on the stand, and it's likely they would have heard him had not Casey raised his hand. With a smile of Christian charity, great Casey's visage shone. He stilled the rising tumult. He bade the game go on. He signaled to the pitcher, and once more the spheroid flew, but Casey still ignored it. And the umpire said, "Strike two!" "Fraud!" cried the maddened thousand. An echo answered fraud. But one scornful look from Casey, and the audience was awed. They saw his face grew stern and cold. They saw his muscles strain. And they knew that Casey wouldn't let that ball go by again. The sneer is gone from Casey's lip. His teeth are clenched in hate. He pounds with cruel violence his bat upon the plate. And now the pitcher holds the ball, and now he lets it go, and now the air is shattered by the force of Casey's blow. Oh, somewhere in this favored land the sun is shining bright. The band is playing somewhere, and somewhere hearts are light, and somewhere men are laughing, and somewhere children shout. But there is no joy in Mudville, for mighty Casey struck out. And there's a picture of mighty Casey striking out. But Casey had his revenge. So this is another story about Casey that was written several years later. There were saddened hearts in Mudville for a week or even more. There were muttered oaths and curses. Every fan in town was sore. "Just think," said one, "how soft it looked with Casey at the bat, and then to think he'd go and spring a bush league trick like that." All his past fame was forgotten. He was now a hopeless shine. They called him Strikeout Casey from the mayor down the line. And as he came to bat each day, his bosom heaved a sigh, while a look of hopeless fury shone in mighty Casey's eye. He pondered in the days gone by that he had once been their king, that when he strolled up to the plate they made the welkin ring. But now his nerve had vanished, for when he heard them hoot, he fanned or popped out daily like some minor league recruit. He soon began to sulk and loaf, his batting eye went lame. No home runs on the scorecard now were chalked against his name. The fans, without exception, gave the manager no peace, for one and all kept clamoring for Casey's quick release. The Mudville squad began to slump. The team was in the air. Their playing went from bad to worse, and nobody seemed to care. "Back to the woods with Casey," was the cry from Rooters Row. "Get someone who can hit the ball and let that big lug go." The lane is long, someone had said, that never turns again, and fate, though fickle, often gives another chance to men. And Casey smiled, his rugged face no longer wore a frown, for the pitcher who had started all the trouble was coming to town. All Mudville had assembled, 10,000 fans had come to see the twirler who had put Big Casey on the bum. And when he stepped into the box, the multitude went wild. He doffed his cap in proud disdain, but Casey only smiled. "Play ball!" the umpire's voice rang out, and then the game began. But in that throng of thousands, there was not a single fan who thought that Mudville had a chance, and with the setting sun, their hopes sank low. The rival team was leading 4-1. The last half of the ninth came round with no change in the score. But when the first man up hit safe, the crowd began to roar. The din increased, the echo of 10,000 shouts was heard when the pitcher hit the second and gave 4 balls to the third. 3 men on base, nobody out, 3 runs to tie the game. A triple means the highest niche in Mudville's Hall of Fame. But here the rally ended, and the gloom was deepest night, when the 4th went foul to catcher, and the 5th flew out to right. A dismal groan in chorus came, a scowl was on each face, when Casey walked up, bat in hand, and slowly took his place. His bloodshot eyes in fury gleamed, his teeth were clenched in hate. He gave his cap a vicious hook and pounded on the plate. But fame is fleeting as the wind, and glory fades away. There were no wild and woolly cheers, no glad acclaim that day. They hissed and groaned and hooted as they clamored, "Strike him out!" But Casey gave no outward sign that he had heard this awful shout. The pitcher smiled and cut one loose. Across the plate it sped. Another hiss, another groan. "Strike one!" the umpire said. Zip! Like a shot, the second curve broke just below the knee. "Strike two!" the umpire roared aloud. But Casey made no plea. No roasting for the umpire now. His was an easy lot. But here the pitcher whirled again. Was that a rifle shot? A whack, a crack, and out through the space the leather pellet flew. A blot against the distant sky, a speck against the blue. Above the fence in center field in rapid whirling flight, the sphere sailed on. The block grew dim, and then was lost to sight. 10,000 hats were thrown in air, 10,000 threw a fit, but no one ever found the ball that mighty Casey hit. Oh, somewhere in this favored land, dark clouds may hide the sun, and somewhere bands no longer play, and children have no fun, and somewhere over blighted lives there hangs a heavy pall. But Mudville hearts are happy now, for Casey finally hit the ball. I hope you have a great day and enjoy the weekend. Play ball.